Good evening. Welcome to the Warrant Committee meeting of July 13th, 2026. This is the first meeting of the new fiscal year and the first meeting of the newly organized Warrant Committee as appointed by our moderator for this year. I'd like to call us to order by just doing a roll call around the room. If people around the room could just say your name. We'll introduce ourselves in a minute, but just say your name, starting with the person on my right, and we'll say who's here.
Macy Lee.
Larry Johnson.
Andrew Coe.
Nick Tagney.
Jimmy Stenars.
Lavita Johnson.
Elaine Craighead.
Cecile Yang.
James Lee Das.
Jay Funling. Lindsay, are you able to
Yeah, I'm here. Lindsay Sands.
okay, great. Now I guess we'll do sort of the same thing, but a little bit longer. I wanna, just go around the room. Oh, go that direction? Okay, we'll go this direction. Go around the room,
Just say your name. Basically.
say your name again. Yes, it's like a party game. Say who you are, say your involvement with Milton town government so far, say your professional background. Short and sweet, let people know who you are.
Okay. So yeah, like I said before, I'm James Lee Das. I was formerly an IT systems manager of all things from networks to all types of infrastructure and bringing us from on-prem or paper to the cloud. Recently I switched careers and I'm now an accountant. So now, exactly, yeah.
Nice.
My wife's a CPA, she's always said, why aren't you an accountant? So finally I just bit the bullet and joined her crew. And I've been in the IT committee for about a year-ish, a little over a year now. Maybe 2 years even, I think. But and then with the Warrant Committee now going on to my second year.
Great, thanks.
I'm Cecile Yang. I'm a software engineer. I moved to Milton like a couple of years ago, so I'm not really super involved in town government except for Warrant Committee last year. Yeah, that's it.
I'm Elaine Craighead. I've lived in Milton for 22 years. I'm a dean at Mass Maritime Academy. I have been involved in the Milton Cultural Council for 3 or 4 years. Milton School, I also chaired the Milton Cultural Council School Committee for 6, and now the Warrant Committee for a year, and this is year 2. I've also served on other town committees as part of my duties on school committee. Looking forward to a good second year.
Good evening, Lavita Johnson. I've lived in Milton for 16 years now. I'm new to town government and I am an entrepreneur, primarily focused on procurement, specifically supply diversity, helping large corporations develop working partnerships with procuring goods and services from minority, women, LGBTQIA, disability, and veteran-owned businesses.
Hi everyone, I'm Jimmy Stenars. I'm a director at an investment firm doing investment compliance and manager team. This is my first town committee. I'm hoping to get on to more, specifically maybe school. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
I'm Nick Tagney. This is my second year on the Warrant Committee. I'm one of those crazy people that grew up in Milton and I'm still here as an adult. I was on the town meeting for about 17 years and I work at an investment management company in Boston. I've been there for 36 years.
I'm Andrew Coe. I've been in Milton 16 years also. This is my 3rd year on the Warrant Committee. Currently, I'm an operations and IT executive. I'm currently a CIO for an insurance company. And looking forward to wrapping up my term.
I'm Larry Johnson. I've lived in Milton for 26 years. I've been on town meeting for about 13 years. And on a couple of other committees, Sign Review Committee, IT Committee with James Lee. I also run Porch Fest.
Oh, you
or help run
do?
Porch Fest. I don't run Porch Fest, I shouldn't say that. I'm on the committee for Porch Fest. And then I work at IT as well. most recently, I worked in cybersecurity as a manager managed the cybersecurity department for about 10 years. Now I'm working as a project manager, program manager for another health insurance company.
As I mentioned, I'm Macy Lee. I've lived in Milton for 23 years. This is my third year on the Warrant Committee, and I previously served as the secretary. I'm also a candidate for Norfolk County District Attorney.
Okay. My name is Jay Funling. I've been in Milton for almost exactly 20 years. And I've been on this is my 5th year on the Warrant Committee. I've been on town meeting for about 15 years, similar to Larry, I think. And what else? I work at Eversource now. I work in the regulations department. Means I pretend to be a lawyer, but I'm not. Previous to that, my previous career was I was an employee benefits actuary. So if we get around the table, I didn't do this much last year, but in previous years, if the table would start talking about health insurance or pension plans, I had a lot to say. So that's that, and we have 2 members on the line, Lindsay or Ron. I'll go alphabetically. Lindsay, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Lindsay Sands. I've also been in Milton about 16 years. I'm an attorney for an energy company called Vicinity Energy. We're a district energy company. I served on 1 term on town meeting not too long ago. I helped on the override committee, and I most recently ran for planning board.
Great. Ron?
Hi, my name is Ron Sia. I'm a resident of Milton since 2009. So, what is that? 17 years? 18 years? I think. 17 years, Jay? How's my math?
I'm not on the clock.
Well, test your actuary skills. Yeah, I've been on town meeting, I think 6 years now, and this is my 4th year on the Warrant Committee. I also work as a in-house corporate attorney. And yeah, excited to have another year of service for the town. So thanks, everybody.
Okay. So that's everybody's introduction. Let's move on to the first item on the next item on the agenda, which is we have to elect a chair. Are there any nominations for chair? Elaine?
I'd like to nominate Jay Fundling.
Okay.
Second.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay. Are there other nominations? Okay.
Actually, I'd like to nominate Nick.
Can I decline? You should. I'd like to decline. I do not have time to do that. I'm flattered by that, but no thank you.
Maybe I'll nominate you.
Hard no.
Lisa, do you want to go through that?
What's
Do
that?
you want to do what we did last year?
Which is,
Do it again.
no, I definitely
I feel like Andrew wanted
no, but thank you, James.
some competition.
Well, if there's a pause of discussion, I'd like to say a little bit about where I see the committee for this year. And after that, especially if you hate what I said, certainly time to nominate someone else. I'd like to share my screen. This will look similar to, well, it'll look very similar to what I shared last year around this time. Slideshow.
Dirty slides, Jay?
Oh, I'm not gonna go through the slides.
That's exactly what he said. He changed the dates.
Pretty much, yeah. I marked in red the things I changed. Now, I'm aware we have 3 new members, we got 100% attendance from our new members. So I'll go over a little bit about what I went over last year, and even people who were new last year might be hearing things with different ears. This is my agenda, let's, for the sake of time. So what is the role of the Warrant Committee? Why are we here? What do we do? We have a few roles. One is we're the trusted advisor to town meeting. I'm not gonna read this. Town meeting, when I describe it to other people who don't live in New England, I grew up in Texas. If I describe it to my friends in Texas, I say that instead of a city council, we have a group of 281 people. A group of 281 people cannot do the investigation and research of all the items that you would expect of a city council. So we do that role. We do all the research and self-educating about all the issues that will go before town meeting, and then we present the information to town meeting so that they can make an informed decision. We do recommend how they vote, like if there's a bylaw coming up, we might say, vote yes, vote no, vote with these amendments. But the most important part we do is not saying, vote yes because we said so, vote no because we said so. The most important part is, and here's what we learned about it. We did our research town meeting. Here's what we learned. Here's where we uncovered all the questions that we thought would come up. So now you can make an informed decision. Next, we are, by law, the finance committee of the town. What does that mean? That means, and we'll be discussing this a lot more later in the year, but the budget eventually is approved by town meeting. We are in the middle of that. The town administrator makes a budget proposal, and the town administrator gives the budget proposal to us. We review it, and we give the final budget recommendation to town meeting. So the budget that goes in front of town meeting is officially our budget recommendation. Now, we do rely heavily on the employees who are paid by the town, but it is our recommendation. We also should take sort of a long-term view of the finances. Here's a slide that I didn't have last year because it's going to reflect a change. I've had 4 previous years on the warrant committee, and every time it sort of feels like the town administrator, with the help of the select board, makes the budget, and it comes in front of us, and we say yes. Now, partly we say yes because the town administrator, with the select board's help, does a really good job. But I want us to take a more active role, and I think that's up to us to do that. Written in the bylaws and also in some schedules that people have agreed on, the town administrator should be providing a budget to us on January 31st. Not to get too into the weeds, but between January 31st and the time the warrant goes to print, some things will change. We'll have more money coming from the state. We'll learn, our health insurance number will be different, et cetera, et cetera. Last year and in previous years, we sort of sat back, let the town administrator do that and tell us what he thought. This year, I'd very much like to have, they're in the room right now, the town administrator, Nick Milano, the financial director, Amy Dexter. I'd like to have them in more often, especially after that January 31st deadline. Okay, you gave us a budget on January 31st, the numbers have changed in this way. What do you recommend as far as how we change the budget? Okay, thank you for your recommendation. Now we're gonna decide. Oh, we have an extra $500,000 in the budget. Where does that go? After the January 31st date, it's really in our hands with the advice of the town administrator, with the advice of the select board, of course. And I spent a long time thinking, who needs to change their behavior to make that happen? It's mostly us. It's mostly, we need to get these guys in, we need to have them talking to us, we need to be proactive about making a decision. So that's one change I want to make this year. We're non-political. Elected boards answer to voters, town employees answer to their boss. We don't have any of that. Does that give us some perspective, some freedom that they don't have? Awesome. Time commitment. This came up much more last year when I was talking to a lot of people who were joining. What's the time commitment going to be? What I tried to do last year was to, it's a good time commitment, but to have people doing work outside the meeting and to reduce the time amount around the table, but making up for that with people doing work outside the meeting. For example, I'll talk in a second about we're gonna have subject matter experts. That worked very well last year. So Article 5 coming before us, and I'll say, you, Jimmy, you're the expert on Article 5. You go research it and come back to us. Rather than all of us sitting around the table learn about Article 5, you learn about it, come back and teach us. I will do my best to keep us focused at the meeting. Discussions can wander, and I'll try to keep us focused. I did add, the things that I'm putting in red are the things I've added for this year. People have time limits. People have restrictions on their availability. That's fine. We're all human. We all have personal lives. We all have professional lives. Communicate to me. That's fine. I'm not going to mandate that everyone do exactly 1/15 of the work for the next 12 months. People have commitments. Going back a little bit about, I said we were gonna have, I tried to minimize the discussion around the table. The last meeting we had, which was the last meeting of last year, there were, I heard the feedback that people wanted to have the article sponsors come in. Now, I tried to not do that last year, again, to minimize the discussion around the table, but I did hear that feedback, so I'd like to, sort of hash that out. You know, and then as we're building up to the fall town meeting, do people, you know, to what extent do people want the article sponsors to come in, or to what extent is that not a good use of our time? What's the role of the chair? Keep us on task. I will have my opinion, it's no more or less valid than yours. I'm gonna abstain from most votes, because if the warrant committee votes A and I thought B, well, if I abstain, I can still, my job in front of town meeting is I get up and I present to town meeting, here's the warrant committee's view. So if 10 of you vote for A and I personally think B, I'm gonna abstain, so that I can get up in front of town meeting and say, I think A. This is my final year on the warrant committee. If you let me chair, it's my final year as chair. I think it's important for me this year to make sure that the role is ready to pass on. Not to put a fine point on it, I spent way too much time in my basement working on Excel spreadsheets last year. I'd like to make, sure that things are in good shape, hand it off. One of my jobs this year is to pass on a job to any one of you, whoever is gonna be chair next year, a job that can be maintained with reasonable effort. We're all volunteers. If I can't do that, then I failed. Subject matter experts, I'm gonna go over this a little bit quickly. It's what I said earlier. Each warrant article has an expert. One or two experts, usually they go back, they report to the rest of us. I'll skip forward. Yeah, we were trying it out last year, and I know I stepped on some people's toes that, other people were the subject matter experts, and I would call up some people related to that and talk to them, and so I stepped on people's toes, we were figuring it out. So I would say that, if, again, Jimmy is the subject matter expert on Article 5, anybody in this committee who wants to learn about Article 5 can just go through the subject matter expert to keep things efficient. It got a little funny also with the school committee, because school budget, former warrant committee chair Dave Humphries said it's like Jupiter, its gravitational field affects the rest of the solar system. So there were some aspects that I felt as the warrant committee chair, I had to be involved with some aspects of the school budget, but then we had a school subcommittee. Was I stepping on their toes? I don't know the answer to that question, but that's something to hammer out this year. Last year we had a summit, a 2-night training. Since most people have experience, maybe it'll be cut down to a one-night training, but I think it was really helpful, and even for people who are coming back, maybe seeing with fresh eyes of what is our role? What is our role in town meeting? What is the warrant? Things like that. I think it worked pretty well last year. Financial policies, I'm gonna gloss over a little bit. That was something where I don't think I was very successful last year of like big picture policies. What do we do with our stabilization funds? What do we do with our free cash? I don't feel like we as a warrant committee really had a unified voice on that. So that's something that I didn't succeed on last year. Maybe we'll have more success this year. Financial policies, warrant committee internal policies. Just sort of, we're not. It's a balancing act. We weren't chosen for our 15 opinions. We were chosen to do what's best for the job and what's best for the town, and to lay out to the town, here's what we thought was best and here's why we thought it was best. It should not be, well, there are 15 of us. 8 of us vote for A, 7 of us vote for B. Okay, that's A, town meeting, the answer's A. We really need to lay out our reasoning behind all our decisions. What else? Individual department budgets, again, it's always a balancing act. I think we leaned, we're approving every budget. I use the library as my example every time, I don't know why. We're approving the library budget. We're telling town meeting, the library budget should be X million dollars. Does that mean we get down to the nitty gritty and say, should this money go to the library or not? To a certain extent, yes. If the town has extra money, then it's our decision of Does the extra money go to the library? Does it go to fire? Does it go to savings? But also, maybe we shouldn't be getting in too deep into the weeds of the individual budgets. It's a balancing act, but each budget will have one, with the exception of schools, each budget will have one person assigned to it. That person is encouraged to get in the nitty-gritty. And just come back to us and say, yeah, things are good, or oh, here's a place where I see some changes. Okay, hey, that was faster than last year, so I apologize if I shortchanged anyone, but that's my vision of how I see the warrant committee running this year. Having said that, I will once again say, are there any more nominations for chair? Hearing none. We have some members on Zoom, so we need to do a roll call vote. I'll do the roll call. I'll go around the room. Macy?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Andrew? You abstain. Okay. Nick?
Yes.
Yes.
Me? Yes. Lavina?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cecile? Okay.
Yes.
Ainsley? Okay. Lindsay?
Yes.
And Ron?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. I am chair for this year. The next thing on the agenda is the election of the secretary. One question you might ask is, what is the secretary? I view the secretary largely as vice chair. That's not the name, but I copied the secretary last year on, if not every email I sent, then practically every email I sent. I wanted the secretary to sort of be my, be a witness to everything I was doing, and to be my sanity check. I often reached out to the secretary last year to say, oh, what are we gonna do in this week's meeting? What's pressing? What's coming up? So I see that as a vice chair, somebody who will see everything I'm doing and give me advice. They also, during town meeting, they have a special role in town meeting. They sort of shepherd the people while I'm up there speaking. They deal with the warrant committee members if needed. And yeah, that's it. So I'm opening up the floor for nominations for secretary. Macy?
I nominate Elaine Craighead to be secretary. She's lived in Milton for 22 years. As she mentioned, she's currently a dean at Mass Maritime, served on the school committee for 6 years, 5 of which she served on the finance committee, also chair of the cultural commission. She's demonstrated dedication to this town, all of us have really, but she is organized, and I see her fitting into the role as vice chair.
Do you accept?
Yes, thank you.
Second?
Yeah, I guess we didn't do it. Yeah, okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay, let's do a roll call vote. I'll go around again. Macy?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Nick?
Yes.
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 Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
Yes.
alright. Lindsay?
Yes.
And Ron?
Yes.
And I will abstain. I didn't abstain from the last vote, but I'm just gonna count me as an abstention for the last vote and for this vote. Okay. We have our chair and our secretary, so we are organized for the year. The next thing on the agenda is the discussion of town finances from the town administrator and the town financial director. If you would join us at the table. Would you introduce yourselves?
Sure. Nicholas Milano, Town Administrator.
Amy Dexter, Finance Director.
Do you want me to start you? Do you?
Sure. Or I can just dive right
That
into
was
it.
not,
I'd like
that was
to
not
do it.
sincere.
Okay. Thank you. So Amy and I will just take a few minutes to talk about our preliminary results of fiscal year 26 on the revenue side, and then do an overview of year-end closeout in terms of how our fiscal 26 ended on the expense side. For the new members of the committee, several weeks ago, our committee met to appoint or designate a member to approve year-end transfers and reserve fund transfers, which are within the power of the warrant committee to do. So at the end of the year, to move money across budgets or out of the reserve fund, we need approval of the warrant committee. And so Jay was designated to be that person. So we'll talk at a high level as to what those transfers ultimately look like. After I talk about the general fund revenue preliminary results. So I'm putting up a chart here. Hopefully it looks a little small. Sorry for that. Try to make it bigger. So what we're looking at is just a summary sheet showing where our revenue landed for fiscal 26, which is the year that ended on June 30th. If you just look down to the bottom line, we had estimated about $145 million of revenue. We brought in about 149.5. So we brought in about 4.25 more than estimated. The big drivers of this have been motor vehicle excise tax. And we spent a lot of time talking about this with the warrant committee, but motor vehicle excise tax continues to be a place where we're bringing in significant revenue year over year. I will note for fiscal 27's forecast, our forecast for 27, we had increased to $5 million, so moved closer to where our fiscal 26 actual was. And just to flag a couple of the larger outliers, penalties and interest. So this is where penalties and interest on longer outstanding tax bills and other liens would go. The tax collector has done a good job of cleaning up some longer outstanding tax bills, so we had expected another bump in penalty and interest, although as she has cleaned up a number of collections, we would expect that to slow down in future years. And then license and permits at 2.4 million, so well above its estimate of 1.485. That's great to see. There are a number of large projects going on around Milton, and homeowners and small property owners continue to invest in their property. So building permits continue to be very busy. I will note of that $940,000 above budget, $770,000 of it are tied to just to three permits for a large 40B project, a daycare, and a project at Winter Valley. So those large projects that are one-offs really do contribute to these large outlier revenue sources, but we're happy to collect it when it comes in. And then lastly, interest or investment income, which is largely interest on our money that we get from our bank accounts. As with everybody else, we continue to see high interest rates on our savings, so that's generating significant revenue on a kind of annual basis now for the past couple of years. We've been careful about bringing up that budget forecast too much, only because if we were to return to the low interest rate environment of 8 to 10 years ago, that number could significantly fall. So happy to see these numbers, but as we indicated, we view 3 or 4 of them as really kind of not necessarily one time, but also not necessarily recurring at this point. So that's very high level overview of where fiscal 26 landed on the revenue side. Happy to take any questions on what we're displaying.
Yeah. So the license, you said we have a lot of license and permits, a lot of building permits. Does that mean that in the next year, 2 or 3, things are getting built, things are getting improved, that's increasing our tax base, so we'll have new growth? Does that?
Yes, so what we, particularly when it comes to larger projects that are paying these larger one-off permits, they will be a source of new tax revenue that will increase the amount of value and taxable land that is out there for the town to assess against. So these large 40B projects that are being built, we capture them as growth even under construction. So if it's 30% built, we're going to assess it in fiscal 27 at 30% of what its total value will be, and they will start paying taxes on that. So it gets built in over time, but it increases the overall pie, for lack of a better word, of money that the town can bring in.
Thank you.
I was surprised at solid waste, that's like up almost 6% from estimates.
Yes, we had increased trash fees for 2 years ago. It was an increase by $1. So I think we still were a little conservative on our forecasting as to what that additional $1 would bring in. So last year and this year, I think we're around 1.7 billion each year. I don't quite remember what last year was.
I don't.
But there was a $1 increase, and that also is for the liens and penalties going there as well for trash. Right?
Yes.
So there was a large number of people who didn't pay, then eventually they paid. Any penalties would have accrued to this account as well, but the $1 fee is the main driver of that.
Is there an inverse correlation between the property taxes and the penalties and interest? What is there an underestimation on that?
So we don't necessarily, we collect about 99% of the taxes in a given year. It's not necessarily that we're collecting 100% of the taxes, we levy 100% of the tax levy. People will owe us that money, but it doesn't mean we necessarily collect it in a given year. So we don't always get to 100% of that amount. If there's a year where we collect a little bit less, the following year might be a little bit higher because all that comes in later.
So actually, that's a good point. So does that, when the money comes in the following year for the tax revenue, for the property taxes, does that line fall into the property taxes or does that fall into the penalties and interest? Does it get split up? I mean,
Here, what we're showing is just a summary line for real estate and property taxes. We'll continue to track them on a fiscal year basis as to when they're levied. Any penalties and interest that somebody might have paid for being 6 months late, they would have paid interest on that. The interest portion and any penalties will go with penalties and interest. The tax portion will still get recorded in the tax line. So I'm speaking.
Okay, great.
So that is the revenue side. So that's good news. You certainly want to be on the positive side of that ledger. Not be talking about a problem potentially. In terms of the other element that I mentioned, which is year-end transfers. So again, there are largely two types of transfers that we seek warrant committee approval for. The first is reserve fund. We put aside a few $100,000 every year in the operating budget reserve fund. That fund is held and only transfers can be approved out of it by approval of the warrant committee. So typically as we approach year end, we view that as kind of a backstop for the operating budget if necessary. The other transfers that we will describe are when the town meeting approves the budget, whatever budget accounts are listed in the warrant are what the departments are allowed to spend against that line. So for example, if police underspends their salaries and wage lines, but overspends their general expense line, to move the money from one of those accounts to the other requires an approval of the warrant committee as well as the select board for these appropriation transfers. So I'll just kind of say in the big picture, the challenge that we were facing in fiscal 26 was that we had a significant winter with a couple of very large storms, so we had a very high snow and ice deficit in the DPW budget. We are allowed under law to deficit spend that account. We had budgeted $160,000 for that budget in fiscal 26. We spent close to 1.7 million, so our deficit was about $1.5 million that we were then looking to make up. And I'll tell you, in the warrant, I think it usually says this too, but in a given year, our snow and ice expenses are typically around $500,000 to $600,000. So we go into the year knowing we're kind of up against it already within DPW with snow and ice. The fiscal 27 budget does include an increase to that, so we're starting to make a little progress to right sizing that budget a little bit better. But that's just a way of saying we don't put very much towards what we know is a big expense. So when as we were working our way through the year, we had concern over a deficit of that size. Luckily, however, the budget is in strong enough condition to absorb that, and we are utilizing the reserve fund to absorb it as well as transfers from other budgets. So in terms of snow and ice specifically, I'll just share a couple of slides or a couple of PDFs here.
And I will say, Amy shared this information with me this morning. I have not yet emailed it to all of you, but I will.
So the first is, this is showing what is being proposed to be removed out of the reserve fund, $277,000 of the reserve fund to go to snow and ice, and then two smaller adjustments in the audit budget to pay for the audit, and then the retirement budget to recover the retirement appropriation. So the $282,000 reserve fund is being 100% utilized, partly to snow and ice and partly to these other two smaller adjustments.
can I give some context to the reserve fund for our new members or also our returning members? It's a fund, it had obviously 280, that's a very exact number. I don't know why we put that number in there last year, but we did. I would say its primary use, although I've only seen it used once in the past 4 years this way, its primary use is its emergency money. If some department in town has an emergency expense that couldn't have been foreseen, and they need the money and they can't wait for town meeting to approve it, they can come to us and we can say, okay. That happened once, I wanna say 2 or 3 years ago, the wood chipper, the DPW failed, they needed $100,000 to buy a new wood chipper. Instead of waiting to go to town meeting, they came to us, can we have $100,000? We said yes. So I think, in my brain at least, that's the most important use for it, even though it's not used that way very often. And then the secondary use for it is at the end of the year, again, things that went over budget. This is a release valve. Am I wrong?
No, that's right, extraordinary or unanticipated expenses, I think is the literal language, so I think that covers exactly how you described it.
Does this leave us at risk if anything else comes up?
No,
That was,
fine.
that was last year's
Oh,
budget, so
sorry,
it's,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm almost done closing the books and we're in good shape, so I'm comfortable with using all of it. There should not be anything else that's needed for.
and the year that started 13 days ago, we have a new budget.
Right. Yes.
Like the year we're currently in, we have a new budget.
What's in FY 27 then? What is current?
I think it's 300,000 even.
Yeah, I don't even remember, but
I
yeah,
think it's
it's
300,000 even, I think we moved it to a round number.
With 10,000 left over after snow and ice.
No, sorry, no,
Yeah.
so we're like 2 weeks ago with
Okay,
this,
yeah.
so we're back in fiscal 26 with this, so the $300,000 that's available for fiscal 27, we have not touched, we have not tapped into, and we anticipate not doing that until around this time next year. So that $300,000 is there and available.
And so sorry, that clears the deficit on snow and ice?
Partially, I'll get to the next sheet will show how the rest of it was covered.
Thank you.
So as mentioned, the snow and ice deficit was about $1.65 million, $160,000 the deficit was 1.49, we had appropriated 160, but our actual expenses were 1.65 million. So the way we got to balance that out was the $277,000 just described from the reserve fund. The DPW budget itself was able to absorb another $500,000, largely due to vacancies and a bit of a spending freeze as we kind of worked our way towards the end of the year. There were probably between, depending on the time of the year, 6 to 7 positions were open throughout the year. So of the 26 kind of operational frontline positions, 6 to 7 of them were vacant. I'd say probably for the course of the year on a consistent basis. So there was savings within DPW already, but because they were undermanned, understaffed. The other departments where we propose transfers are from the select board budget. So the select board budget is where my staff is, that's the town administrator, assistant town administrator, human resources director, the admin in our office, as well as the director of planning and the assistant planning director. The director of planning and the assistant planning director were vacant, as well as the assistant TA position were vacant for much of the year. So we had savings just due to openings in our small office. The legal budget, we underspent the legal budget, so proposed to transfer that out for snow and ice. General insurance, we were just a little bit high on our budget for insurance, so we proposed to use that to offset snow and ice. And then lastly, debt, with the $282,000, we had adjusted our plan and strategy around when we were gonna issue debt. So money that we had expected to pay on principal and interest payments went unspent and instead will be paid in fiscal 27 after we issue debt later this calendar year. So altogether, the combination of the reserve fund, absorption within the DPW budget, as well as these 4 different budgets here, the snow and ice budget for fiscal 26 is now at 0, and the deficit has been erased or absorbed, I should say, by the other accounts that you see here.
What's appropriated for snow and ice for FY 27? I'm just curious.
So we increased it by $90,000, so $250,000 is appropriate for fiscal '27. So we expect to spend more than the $250. Hopefully not anything like $1.65 million. We will keep our fingers crossed, but just the salt alone runs us several $100,000, never mind the labor as well as outside contractors when we need them.
So you're keeping the same salt reserve as last year then?
How do you mean?
Like the money that you're spending on salt, you can say, okay.
We expect to spend, or regardless of if we have those large storms that require multiple days and multiple nights of work, that's when we get budgets like this. If we have just a more typical winter of a bunch of small events, it's a lot more manageable. It's when we get to the point where we're calling out contractors, and then if you'll remember, hauling snow in the middle of the night, having contractors on and staff on in the overnight hours to put snow in dump trucks and take it away, that's really where this cost starts to shoot up.
So you didn't need to touch any of the, I think it was 4 million of extra revenue over a forecasted budget. So what happens to that money?
Not your answer.
So we can't use the revenue to cover anything like this without a town meeting.
Okay,
So that falls to the calculation of free cash.
okay,
So basically the base of the free cash calculation is revenues in excess of what we budgeted and expenses below what we budgeted. That's the base, and then there's a calculation what I have to deduct things. But basically it's like the net income is the base.
thank you.
So we, like Amy was saying, we had thought we might need to come to town meeting to appropriate money to the snow and ice deficit, and that's where we could use anything brought in over and above fiscal '26, but we can't take from the revenue to the expenses without a town meeting appropriation. And just to zoom out across to the town departments, despite absorbing the snow and ice deficit, several of our other departments had underspent their budgets, so we do expect to have decent turnbacks, which is budgets not spending their full appropriation. So as we close the books on '26, we expect to still bring in, still have, excess of $1 million underspent money across all of the town departments. Just as, they spend what they need to spend, but they don't overspend, which is what we ask of the department. And then the other piece is we had set aside money for collective bargaining agreements that went unused. So that money is again gonna not be spent in fiscal '26.
So it's a lot of free cash to start '27.
I'll qualify that by saying, yes, our starting number for the calculation is very high. So more than likely, it'll result in a favorable.
Are you gonna say it, or should I say it?
No, I'm not saying it. There's
Amy
no
feels
free
very
cash.
strongly, the free cash number is not a number until it's certified by the state in October-ish.
Yeah, and if I can get my act together, my goal this year is a little bit earlier. So it has to be the calculation that I do it, and then I submit everything to the Department of Revenue, and they go through and they certify it. And oftentimes, I may miss something, or I might treat something differently than they do, and we work together to come down to the final calculation. So I'm very leery to ever disclose a number until that certification has happened, because there have been instances, not here in Milton, but there have been instances where people have been wrong. So I just don't want to go public with a number, so I always say, and that comes back to my very first year here, was I was told there's no free cash until Department of Revenue certifies it. So that's kind of where that's
then-
going from.
That's great. When does that free cash become budgetable for next fiscal year?
As soon as
So-
it's certified. So in theory, if we had a need, you could go to fall town meeting if I had the certification from the Department of Revenue back. Historically, we tend to wait till town meeting.
Right.
If there's nothing pressing that we need it
So always
for.
kind of a year in arrears.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just add that this is, we're still closing the books, they're positive results, but we won't does happen, and the accounting team, the treasurer's office continue to work through close the books in 26.
So I guess I'll sort of follow up on Nick's line of thinking. So our new members, I don't know if you saw this, but I got up in front of town meeting and delivered some scary numbers in the spring, and yeah, we're barely making budget this year, and next year will be bad, the year after that will be bad. Whether you're a random resident of Milton barely paying attention, or whether you're a member of the warrant committee who's very involved, you could say, why are you saying we're gonna be $4 million under budget last year when we were $4 million over, or in the good direction this year? Now, I will say, I didn't do the math off the top of my head, but let's call it $5 million out of a $150 million budget, larger than $150 million budget. That's only a couple percent. So what I'll give you credit, what you did was you managed $100 and something million budget within a couple percent and going the good direction. So that's great. But I do see where, again, whether the man on the street or us in here making decisions for the town, can we act like it's, this spring hair on fire, we don't have enough money for the budget when we've been millions of dollars in the good direction, not only this year, but the past couple of years. You may not have an answer to that. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. It's just something we'll need to think about.
No, I agree, and I think where we've tried to be, I think we're all in town hall kind of naturally conservative and want to keep our revenue forecast low and want to hold the line on spending, because this goes the other way. It gets really bad really fast. But we've tried to be very deliberate about second guessing those kind of biases or natural instincts to be more conservative and to reevaluate on the revenue front. Do we feel comfortable with increasing projections, and if yes, what do we feel comfortable going to? So I think that's been one of the ways we try to address a little bit of that, is to really dig in deeper on our revenue projections and get to a place where we're happy to move them up and still feel comfortable with it. So I think that's something we'll continue to do through this year, and then it's always going to be, this is largely like I just described with the revenues. A lot of it is one time, not necessarily one time, but also not necessarily recurring. So getting to a place where we feel how long the building permit revenue will be strong for before it starts to kind of get back to its historic norm. This is some of the stuff. This is some of the things that we'll have to work through in the next couple months. And then I will note that we did share with Jay a number of other transfers that are largely from are within departmental budgets, but taking money from one line to another within a budget. I don't know that there's anything to call out specifically, but just know that in addition to these transfers that we're talking about are taking money from one budget out of it to another one, there were some transfers within the departmental budget across the lines that the town meeting approved that sought permission for.
Does that require the warrant committee to approve it too, internal transfers?
Yeah, these kinds of transfers require the approval of both the select board and the warrant committee. The warrant committee designated the chair, former chair and current chair to do so.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, y'all voted me to be your designee,
Right.
so I signed off on these things this morning.
And the full lists Jay has and we can share.
And so a lot of these are, can you go back to just look at, cemetery or police, consolidated facilities, alright. It's like consolidated facilities. In the warrant, there's a line item for consolidated facilities salary wages, there's a line item for consolidated facilities general expenses. And those have to be spent as they are stated. And in this case, consolidated facilities, they overspent a little bit on general expenses, they underspent on salary and wages, so they have to ask for our permission. Can we move from one pocket to another? And that's, if you look at this sheet, that's largely what's going on.
That's all I think we had, unless there's any other questions or discussion items that you'd like us to.
Do we have like a number for each department where we under budgeted? Do we have like a full list of where we under budgeted and where we stand now? Or over budgeted or whatever?
We will have one. I haven't finalized that yet because we have until the 15th to continue to pay bills for fiscal 26. So I usually put that together after the last vendor one is processed.
And when we submit the departmental budgets to the warrant committee, it includes a summary sheet of the prior year, so you can see what their expenses were on the prior year compared to what their budget was. For some of these things, they might have been expenses that we understood and realized within fiscal year 26 were happening, and so we adjusted their budget for fiscal 27 accordingly. So some of it we may have addressed already, some of it we may not have, and that's what some of our work will be over the next.
So there are adjustments going forward if they're underspent this year.
So yes and no. So if they underspent this year and we didn't realize it till now, not necessarily. But if we saw something happening in the fiscal year several months ago and were able to adjust their 27 budget for the new year, we will make that adjustment, and then it'll be fed into what we consider for their budgets for the next fiscal year as well.
Alright, thanks.
Okay, I guess can I ask you to keep sitting there for the next agenda item, which is discussion of annual schedule and plans. I have to admit, I did not plan out much to say about this, but can you remind us, so we have a fall town meeting coming up. Can you remind us when that is? Is that mid-October or has it been set?
October 19th.
Okay, so a week or two earlier than it was last year.
Correct.
Alright, so working backwards from that, the warrant will go to print, and again, lie to us and say an earlier date, but late.
I'd say, sorry, so the warrant for the special town meeting has to be received by town meeting members 14 days before the meeting, so it's a little bit of a longer duration than the annual requires, so it'll be in the mail by September, the week of September 7th is when.
I'm sorry, the week of October 7th?
September 7th. So I'm sorry, it'll be done and with the printer by the week of September 7th.
Okay.
For them to do what they need to do to get it in the mail, in mailboxes by October 5th. So.
Okay, so we need to have made our decisions about these fall town meeting articles by, let's call it September 1st. Is that the first week of September?
First week of September, yeah, with,
So we don't
the
get our
warrant
summer
being
off.
done by September 11th.
Okay, so we don't get our summer off, it's good to know.
That's tight.
I will say that my plan for last year was hell or high water, whether we're busy or not busy, to meet every 2 weeks. I didn't succeed in that. We pretty much did that every 2 weeks, but we did more than every 2 weeks as needed. I haven't put pencil to paper thinking of how are we gonna get to getting these things resolved by the end of.
Do you know how many articles there are?
Yeah, that's the next question. So can you speak to that?
We are discussing with the select board tomorrow. We've received the draft of an article related to a historic district in Milton Village that has kind of bounced around the last couple of years. We have a potential article related to the acquisition of Library College. We had talked about bringing the Atherton Station appropriation for the fire department. So that would be the appropriation for the total project budget to town meeting for October. The Fire Station Building Committee is still working through what their schedule will be, so we'll keep you posted on that. The planning board's been working and deliberating a short-term rentals bylaw. It's not complete yet, so whether that will truly be ready for fall, still to be determined. The DPW engineering department has submitted a request for an appropriation for additional money for water mains. So we're evaluating that currently internally. I know I'm gonna forget something.
That's enough.
Surplus.
Then we have it's more of a housekeeping. but we have some work to do around past capital projects where we borrowed more than we needed for the capital project, so we need to appropriate those monies to another capital project or elsewhere to put them to use, so it's a little bit more financial housekeeping. And I think I will have a list, an improved list after the meeting tomorrow with the select board, to share with you, but that's kind of the back of the envelope list as of right now.
So that's tough, it's not a long list, but these are tough items. I mean, Advent Fire Station, we spent quite a bit of time talking about last spring. You know, if we're going from approving $1 million to approving over $10 million, it's gonna need another look. Laborae, as I understand it, we're going to be not saying we're gonna approve the whole chunk to buy it and turn it into a school, but we'll be approving the smaller amount to buy it, which in some ways makes it easier, but in some ways makes it harder, because then we have to answer the question, well, we wanna buy it. Maybe we'll turn it into a school, and that's a good idea because of this, or maybe we won't turn it into a school, and that's still a good idea because of that. So that'll be complex. And then the short-term rental, anytime we have a zoning issue that's involved. And sounds like we don't know when it's gonna be appearing on our doorstep. So I guess I'd like to hear from everyone, not now, but maybe through email, what your availability is this summer to dig into some of these. I mean, I know, again, we're all human, we all have our schedules. Some people disappear over the summer and that happens, but we obviously need to put a good bit of work into these this summer.
Well, I mean, it'd be nice if we could get started right away, but we don't have any of the articles, right? There's not a lot we can do, except for maybe the fire station, and we kind of know what that's gonna look like. But,
Yeah, I'm trying to think, if we have a fire station person, I'm so glad you spoke up, Larry, fire station. Larry worked on the fire station last year, so it makes sense for him to continue.
Sure.
You can start talking about, open up conversations with the fire station building committee.
Yeah, right.
Similar with whoever's gonna work on Laborae. There are hours and hours of school building committee meetings that I have not watched. I'm not saying whoever works on it will have to watch those meetings, but they'll have to somehow get up to speed.
And I'll just, so on that, those two specifically, so I know the fire station building committee is targeting a meeting potentially the 21st and the 28th.
Okay.
The school building committee is meeting a week from tonight to have the architects in with their initial evaluation of the library building and campus as what it could accommodate for a school project and how much that might cost. So their initial report is due to the school building committee and they'll be presenting that a week from tonight to school building committee.
Okay.
Because they have to make a recommendation of warrant to the select board by the 2nd of August, is that what you're at?
We've tried to get to a point where the school building committee is delivering kind of their take on the campus and the building by the end of this month.
Okay, so I'd like to assign experts to these articles. Probably if we're gonna be meeting every 2 weeks, I shouldn't say if, let's say we're meeting 2 weeks from today. I'd like to assign experts before then, so I'll be communicating with all of you through email, see what your interest is, what you'd like to work on. These big ones will have 2 or 3 experts each. Short-term rental, library, and Atherton certainly. Historic district, Ron, I believe you looked into it in the past.
How does that work if we have 2 or 3 experts in the open meeting rules?
That's a good question. And one we sort of maybe didn't handle last year. I mean, for the budget issues, we had 1 person per budget item to avoid, so if there's a subcommittee, the subcommittee can only deliberate and make decisions in an open meeting. That's a pain in the butt, not because I'm against transparency, but what I found in the past is, let's say Larry and I are a subcommittee, and we want to discuss our issue, Zoom call, Wednesday night at 7. Okay, fine. At least 2 days, but in reality, 3 days before that, we have to have it posted on the town website. Okay, 6:30, Larry's busy at work, he can't make 7 o'clock. In any other situation, I'd say, great, you can't make 7 o'clock? Let's talk at 9, let's talk tomorrow morning at 10. You can't do that. You have to reschedule an open meeting for, it's gonna be the next week at that point. So all that is to say, the open meeting rules make it tough to have subcommittees. Now, when we had the experts last year on these non-financial articles, we didn't call them subcommittees. I don't think we had open meetings. Was that appropriate? Was it not? I thought it was at the time.
Well,
I think
we reviewed everything here. you
yeah,
know.
I think the distinction is a subcommittee decides things.
Yeah.
If you're the Atherton subcommittee, you would have a vote as the Atherton subcommittee. They want $12 million. We think $12 million is good. Let's vote as the Atherton subcommittee to tell the full committee $12 million is good. If you're not voting on that, if you're just sort of fact finding and then come back to us, then it's my understanding you're not a subcommittee and don't have to have open meetings. Again, not because I'm opposed to transparency, because it's a big pain. So that's my understanding. Nick, does that sound right to you?
I'd have to think about it.
Okay,
Let's
that's
just call
fine.
it a research team and be
Yeah,
done with it. It's not a subcommittee.
Yeah.
It's a research team.
But it rose by any other name.
yeah, and we're not making decisions,
I think that's the key, is not making decisions, just reporting back to everyone else.
And in this case, I mean, there's 15 of us, there are more of us than there are articles, so we have to have multiple groups. You
I mean-
know, and some of them, you know, are gonna require more than one person, like the,
Yeah.
you know, short-term rental one is gonna be a piece,
Mhm.
you know.
So yeah, I'll be reaching out to try to gauge people's interest and availability soon. Yeah, if we have it hammered out by next meeting.
So we have all the articles now?
We have none of the articles
We have
now.
none of the articles.
But for example, library, we don't have an article in writing saying, you know, approve X million dollars to buy library. But we know the topic is coming up. So we're a fire station, we know the topic is coming up.
So we have topics.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you can start educating yourself about it
Yeah.
before it's in writing and officially sent from the select board to us.
I haven't seen the planning board meetings about the short-term rental, but I think it's probably a pretty good chance that Brent can be ready for the fall town meeting, don't you think? It's hard to say, I'd have to
It's
watch
still
the meetings, but it's so complicated, you know.
I mean, Nick, do you have a sense of, you said
And
maybe big enough.
another nuance is that it's actually going to be a general bylaws amendment versus a zoning bylaws amendment, so while the planning board is tackling it, and we appreciate their work on it, ultimately it's really a select board that they would work on it, submit it to the select board, so
Yeah.
it requires a lot of inspections and registration process. It's more about getting any kind of short-term rental registered, having them inspected, so it puts a lot of burden back on town departments to do a lot of work. So I think that's where trying to figure out the right balance between regulating an activity that is happening in Milton. There are 74 short-term rentals registered with the state, telling the state they're operating in town. We don't really allow them in Milton, but they're operating anyway. So it's something that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So this would get a regulatory framework around it, and allow us to collect revenue from them. But it's just getting to a place where balancing, you know, wanting to regulate them, if that is the policy option, how to do so in a place that doesn't kind of overwork departments that are already stretched a little thin. So just kind of balancing those factors is what's tricky. So yes, it's
Very complicated.
something they tackled and are working towards for fall, but I don't have the latest on their progress on that one. And then after tomorrow night's select board meeting, we'll have a little bit more line of sight into that. I can share an update then. And the select board's also meeting on July 21st, where I expect a couple of these other articles that are more within our control to be finalized and submitted for the warrant committee. Library will certainly take a little bit more time just because there's another partner here that we have to work through the real estate market and that, so it's a little bit more complicated. But as always with any of these articles, if whoever is working on them has any questions, you know, he's around, I'm around, we're available to meet with you whenever. So we can get you some information, we can point you in the right direction. If helpful, don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, I appreciate, I am promoting Joanna McCarthy to panelist in case she has something to add, but maybe she's just one of our fans. Okay, thank you, so that's, we've got a busy summer in front of us. If there's nothing else, I think we can adjourn. If one of our members who isn't here, Lee Michael, was usually good about pushing it aside and saying, Jay, stop filling the time, adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we're not gonna do a roll call vote, all in favor, say aye. Great.
Thank you.